If you don't think the Bible has any surprises left in store, think again. Most everyone I know, even folks who have read the Bible cover to cover many times, often remark on the fact that they are always discovering new things. It's not that they haven't read it all before, only that they never really noticed something before. They often describe these new discoveries as gems hidden in plain sight. Today's reading from the Gospel of Matthew is one of those gems, and it is hidden in plain sight. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Friday, January 10th, 2025. To get into today's reading, it is important to remember that the four Gospels, as similar as they are, especially Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the Synoptic Gospels, they are completely different in how they handle the birth of Jesus. Mark, for example, doesn't even mention his birth. Mark starts the gospel with the baptism of Jesus when he's already an adult. And John starts with a kind of cosmic vision of God's purposes in the incarnation, but doesn't mention the birth. That leaves Matthew and Luke to fill us in. And they tell very, very different stories. The problem is, we tend to do a mashup during Advent and Christmas by telling one unified story. Remember, only Luke tells the story of the shepherds in the field keeping watch over their flocks by night, and only Matthew tells the story of the magi, the wise men from the east bringing their gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, and only Matthew tells the story of Joseph being warned in a dream to take his little family to Egypt to escape the wrath of the fearful tyrant King Herod. But there is one more story in Matthew sandwiched between the flight to Egypt and the sudden segue to the baptism of Jesus many years later. This story tells of how Joseph once again receives a warning to flee in order to protect his little child. As you hear this story, listen for an important detail about where Jesus comes from. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who are seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene. Did you hear it? It is only after the birth of Jesus and only after the family returns from Egypt that the family moves to Nazareth in the north, in the region of Galilee. I had to read that again to make sure I had it right. In my mind, Mary and Joseph had come from Nazareth in Galilee to Bethlehem in the south for the census, but that detail is only part of Luke's story. Matthew seems to know nothing about that. For Matthew, the family apparently ends up in Nazareth only because of the need to flee from persecution at the hands of Herod's son Archelaus. Our natural inclination is to try to harmonize these accounts, but sometimes it's okay to leave the differences hanging there. Matthew uses this story once again to underline the continuity between the events surrounding Jesus and events and prophecies in the Old Testament. Matthew clearly doesn't portray Jesus or his parents as natives of Nazareth, but as refugees once again fleeing a despotic king and then settling in Nazareth sometime after the birth of Jesus. But there's something else going on here in the stories of this refugee family. Not only does Matthew use these stories to highlight the continuity of the story of Jesus with the Old Testament prophecy, these stories also serve as foreshadowing events that are to come. For just as Mary and Joseph had to flee to protect their tiny son from political despots, so in his ministry Jesus will come face to face with despots, both religious and political, who see him as a threat to their authority. Matthew's placement of these two stories is a gem hidden in plain sight, for they manage to tie past, present, and future together in one neat package. The past, Old Testament prophecy. The present, not one but two fearful despots potentially seeking the life of Jesus, which then points to the future, the opposition of both religious and political authorities to Jesus in his ministry. Tomorrow, we'll wrap up our exploration of stories and themes related to Epiphany. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.